much.
I think we were at Barton together.
We were.
It's good to see you. Good to see you.
Thanks for being here.
Well, hey, nice to see you.
Nice to hear a guy up here.
Great to see you. Yeah, nice to see you. Hey, good to see you. Good to see you. Go over here. Right.
Please have a seat. Before I turn the podium over to General McConville, I call on General Harris, our host this weekend, to help us with a special presentation. John?
Thank you, General Boyle. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution mandates that Congress has the power to declare war, raise and support armies, provide and maintain a navy, and organize, arm, and call on the militia. I imagine the framers of the Constitution had no way of knowing that we would be faced with raising an army, arming and calling on a militia in an environment that involved unmanned systems, satellites, hypersonics, long-range weapons, or the challenges that we now face today in terms of meeting our adversaries. But the leader you're about to hear from certainly embraced from the very beginning the National Guard as a part of that solution. 3 of us had the opportunity to serve on his transition team, and I don't want that point to be lost. There were 3 Adjutants General who served on the Chief of Staff of the Army's transition team. And for his embracing the power of the National Guard, General McConville is awarded the Harry S. Truman Award. The citation reads as follows: presented to General James C. McConville for sustained contributions of exceptional and far-reaching magnitude to the defense and security of the United States. General McConville's distinguished military service, culminating as the Chief of Staff of the Army, will leave a lasting and profound mark on the professionalism and readiness of the armed forces of the United States. His insistence on a total force culture was foundational to the National Guard's role as a modern and relevant reserve component of the Army. His utilization of the Guard for the full range of Army missions ensured that the National Guard remains the premier combat reserve force in the world. He ensured the Guard maintained high levels of readiness through realistic and challenging training that included warfighters, international exercises, and combat training center rotations. That level of readiness proved essential to the Guard's ability to provide a rapid, sustained COVID response while also responding to natural disasters, protecting borders, securing critical airspace, and meeting all overseas national security missions. General McConville's People First initiative transformed America's Army and set the conditions for the total Army to become the most innovative, talent management, and leader development organization in the world. General McConville's tireless dedication, bold leadership, and honorable public service bring great credit upon him, the United States Army, and the Department of Defense.
Thank you.
We have an award over here to present. John, you want to lead him over here?
Okay. Well, okay. Oh, wow. Wow. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. We've got a picture here. So thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
Take questions or just...
Yeah, I'll take questions, sure. Yeah, I'll speak a little bit and take some questions, and I'll let you, however you want to do that.
I'll give you the podium just one second.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, please take your seats. So after this presentation, General McConville would like to take a few questions from the crowd, so be thinking about any questions that you might have for General McConville. But I want to just simply emphasize the importance of the Truman Award today. It's true that we have given this award to presidents and to legislators and to cabinet-level officials over the years, but there have only been a couple of retired general officers that we have presented this award to. The last time we presented this award to a currently serving general officer was in 1969, to General William Westmoreland, the Army Chief of Staff of that time. He was our very first recipient, and General McConville today is the second recipient of the award. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief of Staff of our Army and the 2022 recipient of the August Harry S. Truman Award. Sir, the podium is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Please. Thank you. Well, thank you, and you know, what an honor. And people say, why were there 3 tags in my transition team? Well, the real reason is, we don't go anywhere or do anything without the National Guard, and quite frankly, for me, I need all the help I can get for the people that know me. So, again, good afternoon. Thank you all. As I look at around the room, I reminded her we were back in a few years back in Bagram in Afghanistan, and so many of you have had the privilege of serving together during some pretty challenging times. I don't know if Frank McGinn's out there. If he is, he and I grew up in he's over there somewhere, Massachusetts. All right, how about is Massachusetts here? I can't hear you. All right. No, I do. I know this is a great honor, and when I look at who has been the recipient of the award, I'm just very, very humbled, extremely humbled. And for me, it represents just how special the National Guard is to our nation, to our Army, and really around the world. And so for me, on behalf of about 1 million soldiers, and especially those from the National Guard, that's who I accept it for, because they are the ones that do the work. They are the ones that make all the great things that our Army does happen. And one of the things I don't think can be said enough is we can't do what we do as an Army without the National Guard. So how about a hand for the National Guard? I'd like to highlight some of the leadership that's here. And General Dan Hokanson and I go back to the early 80s when we were both stationed together. I was a captain and he was a second lieutenant at Fort Ord, California, and the senior enlisted advisor, Tony Whitehead. And I do want to recognize John Jensen. I want to recognize Command Sergeant Major John Raines, all the tags, all the division commanders and Command Sergeant Majors, because you provide incredible leadership for the National Guard, for our Army, and for our nation. And you are the right leaders at the right time to take care of our soldiers and to protect the nation. And we've asked the National Guard to do an awful lot over my tenure over the last 3 years. And every time we have asked, the National Guard has been always ready and always there. And every year, at least during my tenure, we've been saying, hey, this is the year of the Guard. It can't get any busier than it's been. And every year, we ask you to do more and more and more, and you do it in such an outstanding manner. And I am so proud of everything that you have done to support your hometowns, to support our communities, our nation, and the operations that you do all around the world. And you have a tremendous impact and make a difference everywhere that you go. And right now, you have over 20,000 soldiers mobilized and deployed supporting multiple combatant commanders around the world. And this includes New York National Guard, where are you? I don't hear you back there. Must be Red Sox fans back there in New York. Just saying. All right. Who replaced the Florida National Guard? Where's the Florida National Guard? All right, great job. And assuming command of the Joint Multinational Training Group in Ukraine, and a special thanks to California. You've been doing that for, where's California? Way out west, I got it. So you got a long way to be here. But also, really great job in what you've done for Ukraine and really Eastern Europe and really around the world. Your state partnership programs are really making a difference. Your security assistance, security cooperation missions around the world are really making a difference. What you're doing here in the Homeland Defense missions, COVID-19 response, natural disaster response, and cyber responses are really making a difference. And, we've seen some of the most destructive natural disasters in recent history. And your immediate responses have saved hundreds, maybe thousands of lives. And over the last year, you've responded to wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods. You worked with the interagency, and you have brought hope to America when it needed it the most. And what makes you special is not just what you do, but it's really how you do it and the great people who have answered the call to serve. Soldiers like Staff Sergeant Matthew Dial from Richmond, Kentucky. And he was one of the, where's Kentucky? I can hear you, all right. And, who was one of the hundreds who immediately responded to the recent flooding in Kentucky. And because he lived in the community, he knew the roads and the hard to reach places. He already had contacts in place with the community. He worked tirelessly with local leaders and emergency management teams. And because of his relationships and knowledge of the area, he was able to get supplies and support where it was needed in record time. And because these were his people, and this was his home. And you just can't get a response like that anywhere else but from the National Guard. And you all have been such incredible players. I get a lot of feedback from the states, the governors, and what you have done to support COVID operations. In some ways, people say you're the Swiss Army knife of the Army because you do it all. And when they need you to go into hospitals, when they need to go in nursing homes, when they need you to drive buses, when they need to do vaccinations, testing, when they need you, you are there. And they know that you'll be there when they need you. And it's your work that has saved untold lives in your communities. And you should be extremely proud of that because we are. So thank you all. Another hand for National Guard. We are living in very challenging times. And I'm not sure I've seen a time, in at least my 41 plus years of service in the Army, that are so potentially dangerous. Just take a look at Russia, who the National Defense Strategy is now calling an acute threat. The Ukrainians call them something else. Just saying. Anyways, who conducted an unprovoked attack on Ukraine. What many in Europe considered unimaginable not too long ago. Look at what is happening in Asia. Our pacing challenge from the National Defense Strategy, China, with an economy nearly equal in size to ours, is building a world-class military to challenge us in the world order. And while we focus on China and Russia, we can't take our eyes off our other persistent threats, North Korea, Iran, and violent extremists. And on top of all that, we're still dealing with the challenges of COVID, and we will deal with more unprecedented natural disasters throughout this country. And despite all these challenges and all these threats, we're going to continue to transform our Army so they're ready for the next 40 years as we move from counterinsurgency, counterterrorism, irregular warfare to large-scale combat operations. And I think it's a good thing that we've started transforming, that we did start transforming when we did, because when the crisis hit our allies, when Russia unprovoked attacked Ukraine, we were ready. And we were ready because, first, we had a strong permanent presence in Europe. We had the theater set logistically in Europe. We had just made U.S. Army Africa and Europe a 4-star command, which allowed us to have the right command and control in place. Second, as many of you already know, we've had many years invested with the National Guard State Partnership with many European countries, and especially with Ukraine, as I talked about California, and the other great state guards who have helped them train and reach the level of proficiency that they're demonstrating on the battlefield every single day. And third, we're able to rapidly deploy highly trained and ready units into theater very, very quickly, and there they remain to reassure our allies and partners and to deter any further threats. And so we talk a lot about the future fight, and what we're doing with Ukraine is checking on where we're going. We are learning a lot of lessons from Ukraine. And for some of the older gentlemen that are sitting here in the front row, we did the same thing during 1973 when we took a look at the Arab-Israeli war. And out of that Arab-Israeli war, the leaders at the time were able to transform the Army. That's where Air-Land doctrine came from. That's where the Big Five came from. That's where many of the weapon systems, the concepts, and the training centers that we all enjoy and take for granted today, that's where they came from. And so we're moving forward with these lessons to develop our multi-domain operations doctrine. And that will be coming out very, very soon in FM 3.0. And from Ukraine, we're learning a lot about a command post. And what we're learning is that in order for them to survive, they have to be small and mobile. Command posts that are large and stationary, like what many of us got used to in Afghanistan or in Iraq, will not survive on the modern battlefield. So we must change there. We need to be able to operate isolated and dispersed. And we need to expect to be contested across all domains: the land, air, sea, cyber, and space. And long-range precision fires. How many artillery do we have out there? All right, we're going to make fires great again. All right, just saying. All right. Long-range precision fire is going to be critical for our future fight. And that's why they are our #1 modernization priority. And it's not just fires. We're working to bring sensors together into command posts and have the ability to quickly move that data to lethal means so we can take advantage of the speed, range, and convergence to give us the decision, dominance, and overmatch that we're going to need for the Army in the future. You know, some have called HIMARS the game changer in Ukraine. But very shortly, we'll have the precision strike missile that rides on HIMARS that will have ranges in excess of 500 kilometers. Pretty soon, we'll have a multi-range capability that'll give us the ability to sink ships at extended ranges. And very, very soon, we will have a hypersonics capability that will allow us to penetrate and strike integrated air and missile defense targets thousands of miles away. And I can see a future Army where we assist in providing land-based no-fly and no-sail zones as another option for our combatant commanders. And that's really what modernization is all about. It's about providing multiple options for the joint force and providing multiple dilemmas for our adversaries. And I believe, and this is really for industry that's out there, that one of the greatest threats in the future is going to be lethal enemy unmanned aerial systems. And we must aggressively attack this problem set. I see the unmanned aerial system very similar to the ID that we all saw at the beginning of Iraq and Afghanistan. And so we're aggressively investing in weapon systems and concepts that are going to help us counter unmanned aerial systems. And for industry out there, we're looking for innovative solutions. And we are doing a lot of amazing things in modernization. Next year, we will deliver 24 of our modernization signature systems in 23. And those systems are coming very, very quickly. And you all will be part of those fieldings. And you all will be part of those fieldings up front. Things like extended range cannon, things like mobile protected fires, things like future unmanned aircraft systems, mobile SHORAD, indirect fire protection capability, the lower tier air missile defense sensors, Army integrated air defense. All those are coming, and in the future, when we get future vertical lift, you will be part of those programs, and you will be part of the optionally manned fighting vehicle, because we need you to be ready to go, and we need to make sure that you have the same equipment you need that the regular Army has, so you can do that mission. And this chief and future chiefs need to be committed to making that happen. And this is for the majors out there. You know, I like to say that majors talk grand strategy and generals talk squads. Because what we learned as you move your way up is, as a general, if you don't have great squads, platoons, and companies that can execute the mission, it doesn't matter how good your plans or strategy is. So for readiness and training, although we are transitioning to a division-centric Army that we need to fight as in large-scale combat operations, the foundation of the Army will always be our small units, our squads, our platoons, and companies. And that's what we're saying when we talk about foundational readiness. And I think you all do that extremely well. And I've talked about this often, but one of the best examples I saw of that was the Red Bulls 134. When they went, all right, we got Minnesota, get them out there. I can hear you, your old boss can hear you too, so he's smiling. But I see it across the Guard. You know, we ask you to do an awful lot, and you don't necessarily get the time and resources to do that. But what you do is you focus on the critical tasks of hands, and that's what that brigade did. It made sure, even though it was involved in some very challenging operations in Minneapolis, it was challenged by COVID. It went to the National Training Center, making sure that their platoons and squads were highly trained, disciplined, and fit and ready to fight. Because of that, they were able to quickly, exponentially increase their training level, and they ended up in the Middle East, and quite frankly, they ended up in Afghanistan, and they did an incredible job. And that's just an example of what I see in the National Guard all the time, and that's why foundational readiness is absolutely key. And you know, we talk about people first, and this is something that I think is really what our Army is all about. It's about our people, and it's about our soldiers from the regular Army, the National Guard, our reserves. It's about our families. It's about our great civilians, and it's about our soldiers for life who are here also. And that's what makes the Army really what it is. What makes this Army extremely the world's greatest Army. You know, and after Russia invaded Ukraine, I had a chance to go visit our troops, visit your troops in Germany, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. I also had the chance to meet with 36 of my European counterparts. And I can tell you to the person that I was humbled by the praise and respect they had for our Americans as soldiers, and the praise and respect that they had for their National Guard state partners. And that is an extremely important program that you execute, because it really means something when people are concerned about the futures of their countries. You know, and there's that old adage about, you know, where American soldiers go, freedom follows. What I saw, where American soldiers went, freedom stayed. And that was because we put American soldiers on the ground, National Guard soldiers, American soldiers, and that really made a difference. And what I learned is there's no substitute for the presence of an American soldier on the ground when it comes to truly reassuring our allies, deterring our adversaries, or bringing order to chaos. It truly makes a difference. But one thing I do want to talk to you about, that again, as we move into the future, it is about people. And that's why recruiting and retention is so important. And at the Army and in the nation, we are putting out a call to service. We're putting out a call to inspire young men and women to sign up to serve their country in all institutions, military, teaching, going to the police forces, going to the fire forces, going to all those institutions that make us the greatest country in the world. And we have some challenges right now on the recruiting side. And we have some challenges of young men and women that maybe can't quite meet the standards, or they can't meet the physical and academic standards. And so what we're doing in the United States Army is, first of all, quality is more important than quantity. And I ask you to take that on. But we're not going to lower standards. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to raise the young men and women's standards that want to serve. I was just at Fort Jackson yesterday, and we have stood up a future soldier prep course. And it's designed for those who can only meet the standards of being a Cat 4 soldier, or they can't meet the physical standards. And we have young men and women to serve. And we're going to give them 90 days to go through this preparatory course and to improve their academic standing and their physical standards. And already, after a couple of weeks, we're seeing tremendous progress in these young men and women. And it was very emotional for me to talk to these young men and women who truly want to serve. And for the first time, they said someone was investing in them and giving them the opportunity for a future. And so I see that this program, we're going to scale it up. And we're going to give lots of young men and women who, maybe because of COVID, maybe because of whatever, haven't had a chance to get the academic standards that they need to be able to pass the ASVAB. Or they haven't been able to play sports so they can be physically fit and serve in this Army. But they want to do it, and we are going to do that. Only 23% of Americans are qualified right now to come into our Army. So we're going to have to make that happen. And when I talk about people in our Army, I talk about soldiers for life. And, one of the important things to do is, once someone has served honorably, whether it's 2 years or 40 years, make sure they leave with dignity and respect, and thank them for their service. And ask them, like I do, as soldiers for life, to do two things. Two things I ask soldiers for life, because they're either retirees or they're veterans, and I don't want to give them too much to do. But what I ask them to do is inspire and hire. Inspire other young men and women to serve their country so they have infinite possibilities, and hire our veterans when they leave. And if you can only do one thing when you leave, inspire, and we'll take care of the rest for you. Thank you so much. I'm extremely proud of what the National Guard does every single day. I'm very, very proud to serve with each and every one of you. God bless each and every one of you. God bless the National Guard. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we'll give questions. We'll give questions a chance. So
yeah, I'll take questions.
We'll give questions a chance. If anybody would like to ask a question of the Chief of Staff of the Army, it's a hard time to see, but
All right. Where were my Red Sox fans? We're having a rough year. Okay, that's about we're going to talk about adversity. We're overcoming adversity. Never give up. Never accept defeat. That's what I'm telling the folks in Massachusetts, right? Red Sox? All right. Winning does matter. That's trademarked for the Army, but we can use it for the Red Sox.
Sir, I'll ask a question if I may.
Sure.
From behind you here. So
Okay.
you talked about we have to get after recruiting and retention to try to fill those blocks, and you want to leave the standard, not lower the standard.
Yeah.
Is there any conversation about maybe updating the standard? There's been some conversations about the ASVAB perhaps need to be upgraded from the 70s or 80s to the 2010. So if I may ask you for a comment on that.
No, I'd like that. That's a great question. One of the things that we're trying to do is move from what I would argue is an industrial age recruiting system to, quite frankly, a 21st century talent management system. So take a look at the ASVAB. You can't use a calculator on the ASVAB. Think about that. So we're testing kids on things that, I was actually going through the classes with them yesterday. And I got a master's degree in aerospace engineering from Georgia Tech, which is, where's Georgia? They here? Okay. All right, okay. So, but I'm looking at it, and the kids today are like, why would I have to do fractions? I got a calculator, I got a watch, I do it on my phone. So we have to start thinking about how we do things differently. And, what we're trying to do right now is there's always this sense of, you're going to lower standards. You're going to lower standards. And as we start having trouble recruiting, what people start convincing themselves is, hey, the ASVAB's not a good test, let's lower it. Or, you can be 50 pounds overweight, you don't have to meet physical standards and all those type of things. We don't want to do that yet. What we want to do is take advantage of this program. And what we want to do is take a look at these kids that are having a hard time meeting the ASVAB standards and say, hey, wait a minute, we don't think this is a good test because we can show that. I'll talk about someone I know very close because he lives in my family and he's my junior son, but I won't mention his name. But I learned a lot about, when I look at the ASVAB, that is like the military SAT test, okay? And some of you, if you're raising kids, they take a pre-SAT before they take the SAT, And what that does for you, it determines whether you're going to college, and then how well you do kind of impacts what type of college you can go to. Well, I know somebody that went and took the PSAT, didn't take a calculator, I don't think they took pencils, and they didn't do very, very well at all. In fact, so bad, I wasn't even sure the person was going to college. We're regrouping in the family. Well, then we put him in this prep course, and he took his pencils and he took his calculator, and we had this discussion about how this matters, and he actually did very, very well. So well, I go, did you really take this test? And he did. But here's the thing we're finding with this prep course, and I met kids that went up 40 or 50 points, and that is huge. I mean, went at 2 or 3 categories. A lot of these kids have never had any type of structure or framework when it comes to their lives. And to me, it was amazing. I took some senior media down there, and if there's any media here, I love you all. No, but she asked a very good question. Are you teaching the test? And what we're trying to do is prep for the test. But what I took a step back and said, when I asked each of these soldiers why they wanted to come in the Army and what they were getting out of this program, every single one of them said discipline. And it's really interesting. What they are getting is an opportunity. Some of these folks had tried to pass the ASVAB 3, 4, and 5 times. And they couldn't get there because they didn't have anyone to help them. If you ever read a book called The Talent Code, and you don't have to because I'm going to give you the 3 things out of it, what it talks about is how to make people really good. And so I'm a student of, performance. But how you make someone really good, how you get someone like Tiger Woods or someone that's a master of their craft, professional athlete, is 3 things. You do deliberate practice. Deliberate practice. Number 2 is you have to have passion about what you're doing. And number 3 is what you have is expert coaching. That's how you make people really good at what they're doing. professional golfers have swing coaches, even though they're really good, because they want to get better at that expert coaching. What we're finding with this system is, we've brought in a lot of very smart people to help them get expert coaching in improving what they're doing, and they're doing it. What I want to be able to do is get data from this, just like you said. I think the ASVAB is something we need to take a hard look at. And I've got some, and we have to do it in a methodical method because it's kind of the test in place. But we also had some other people take the ASVAB. One had a master's degree in physics, it was one of the cadre. And I won't say what his scores were, but thank God he didn't take it when he came in the Army, But we have to think differently about how we're going to do that. And we are doing, and some of the older folks here are going to get excited, we have to adapt. We have to meet the young men and women halfway. And we have to use leadership, engaged leadership that's going to inspire them to actually get better. The way we maybe grew up, whether it was hazing or shark attacks and some of those type of things, they don't work on this generation. What we find is inspirational, engaged leadership makes a difference. And we see these young men and women, when they get that, doing incredible things, losing 6 to 8% body fat, improving 40, 50 points. I think this is the future. But what I want to get to with this program, it's 90 days. So they are not in the Army. They got 90 days to show performance, and then we can see how they do. And the interesting is, they're still qualified for the Army, but they don't get to come in. They have to meet the Cat 4 requirements, okay? So they are qualified. We're not going below Cat 4. But as you all know, we're only allowed to have 4% Cat 4s, but if we could bring them in and find out that they have exceptional capabilities, then we could invest in them. And the kids I saw, they were motivated. They were extremely motivated. They were very, very disciplined. The other thing is, we just finished. I mean, we're pretty agile. I'm pretty proud of the Army. We usually take like 7 years to do something, but we actually stood this thing up like in 3 weeks. And we just finished our first 3-week session. So if you get through the 3-week session and you can pass the test at a certain level, then you can move into initial military training. What we're seeing with those students is they're actually excelling now in initial military training because they already know how to do a right-left face. They already know how to wear a uniform. They know how to so they're actually the leaders going into this organization, and we see a lot of potential for that. But what we have to do, and what I want to do, is get a better idea of how we know what true standards are. Some of us, and I'm not saying anyone out here would be like that, but people make mistakes when they're growing up. And it's very difficult for young men and women today with the systems in place to recover from a mistake. And we want to give people an opportunity. We don't want people, in our Army, that are not going to do great things. But on the other hand, is we want to be an army of possibilities. We want to be an army, quite frankly, we can do anything you want, where you can be all you can be.
We have time for another question if there is one.
Okay.
I see one in the back. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir. Lieutenant James Lawrence from the New Hampshire Army National Guard. The day before I commissioned as a second lieutenant, I received a brief from our ATAC, Brigadier General Mark O'Brien. He told me that, amongst many other things, he said, LT, rest assured, you are going to make mistakes. But the best thing you can possibly do is to learn lessons from them. So, sir, back when you were a company grade officer, I'm curious, what was the greatest lesson that you learned from either a mistake that you made or watched a colleague make?
Yeah, let me think about all the mistakes. Which I gotta put them in the No, I mean it's a great question. People take a look and I have cadets who will ask me, "Hey, Chief, what do I need to be what do I need to do to be the Chief Staff of the Army?" I go, "Well, start with being a good lieutenant, and a captain." And when I think about one of the biggest mistakes that I thought I made when I got a couple. I'll give you a couple of mistakes because lieutenant captain. But one of the mistakes I made was when I was in a certain organization, enthusiasm is not capability. So what do I mean by that? We were doing some aviation operations. I wasn't involved in the planning. I wasn't involved in the rehearsal. And it was at night. And I was actually the ops officer at the time, and I was kind of running, the show. And all of a sudden they go, hey, Jim, can you hop in and do this mission? And of course I can. I'm me. I can do anything you want me to do, and I'm motivated. And I didn't do the rehearsal. I didn't do the practice. And we were hitting the roof, and the pilot and myself were kind of qualified, very qualified. We hadn't done the rehearsal, and we almost lost an operator going down a rope because we didn't do a very good job of communicating. So my biggest takeaway was, make sure you understand, what your true capabilities are. And there's a lot of times you're going to be put into positions where people are going to ask you to do things that you may not be quite ready to do. Or, I've done things in combat where, and that stayed with me. I remember we were given a mission in Sardis City, and I was flying with some crews that were much less experienced. And we did a rehearsal in combat over Sardis City because we were actually shooting rockets into an intersection. I want to make sure we did it right. But take the time to get things right. And, as you go through the process, the other thing I would say, it's not nearly at junior level, one of the things that I didn't do as well when I was younger was coaching and mentoring in some ways. And what I mean by that is I would always look for the best in people. And I would try to bring that out. And, sometimes I didn't spend time on working on their holes in their swing. And so some of them, when they left me, they did extremely well with me, but they had holes in their swing. And they didn't get after those holes in their swing. And what you find out as you move up, some of you may have little holes in your swing. It's okay when you're a captain, major, but as you start to move up, those holes in your swing could get amplified. And you need to make sure you're having someone help you work your way through it. Don't be afraid to take feedback from people, even if you don't agree with them. Why would they say that? I don't see that. One of the programs we have in place on the active side is the Battalion Command Assessment Program and the Colonel's Command Assessment Program. And we have high-quality officers who, for one reason or another, don't make it through the program, and they have holes in their swing. What we find is those who go, oh, I get it, I understand, I'm going to make changes, they do fine. Those who don't learn and they don't progress. We are all learning every single day. I'm the Chief of Staff of the Army. I've been doing this for almost 42 years, and I'm learning every single day. So don't stop learning. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Try not to make big mistakes, and make sure you're not making mistakes when it comes to character type issues. Do the right thing. Not only do the right thing, but do it the right way. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, sir, thank you. To the left.
Hey, sir, good afternoon. Garrett Nelson, captain from Arkansas. Earlier, when you took the Major General's question, you mentioned we're not looking at lowering the standards yet, and you talked specifically about the ASVAB. So when talking physical standards, sir, with the ACFT and all the ups and downs that have come with that, is there a look at potentially lowering maybe the OPAT or the ACFT standards, or going the opposite way, sir, going back towards a position-specific test, i.e. infantrymen aren't graded on the same scale as personnelists? Yeah. Is there any thought as that, sir?
Well, there's lots of thoughts. If you watch, there's an interesting discussion going on in physical fitness. So first of all, where I'm at as a chief, we're not lowering standards, okay? So I'm just not there. And as long as I'm chief, I say that because we're playing a long game here. And when I talk about people first, it's a long game. And what I try to get commanders to do is play the long game. That's hard when you're a company commander, battalion commander, and your national training center rotation's coming up, or one of these things is coming up. Try to play the long game. The whole thing about the ACFT, okay, there's been a lot of discussions, you know, knee tucks, this. I personally think it's a good test. And there's a lot of, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on it. The Secretary's got a lot of feedback. We studied it. We studied those type things. But the bottom line is, we went from the APFT, which I'm old enough to be around when we first started it over 40 years ago. And when we started the APFT, we wanted something simple. You know, 2-mile run, sit-ups, and push-ups. And the scale was very different. That PT test was designed the way we started. It was 5% would fail and 5% would max. And so what you saw is over the years, that those who came in, the standards changed. We got everyone on the test, and then we actually raised the standards. You know, so all of a sudden you're sitting there going, hey, wait a minute, when I was 20 years old, I only had to run, 13. Now I'm like 35 and I'm running, 12:15 for 2 miles. So what I see first of all, I think the ACFT is a much better test. There was a lot of discussion on whether we went to the plank or we went to the knee tuck. And quite frankly, when you're putting something across the Army in place, you don't want to disenfranchise large groups of people. And that's where we're at. There's legislation that's coming forward, which I think is going to say, hey, we want to have, a test that for combat arms or for certain MOSs, and we're going to work that. But what I see right now with the ACFT is, again, I'm 63 years old. I'm taking it. I take it with the NCOs, 596, and, got 4 points. Sergeant Major was 599. He beat me, so I got to kind of work on that. But here's the deal. This test is going to make our Army much, much more physically fit. I mean, if you look at the old APFT, it's a little more challenging because you got stuff going on, but you could do a lot of those type things. And what we want to do is get everyone on the bus. The whole Army, almost 1 million people on the bus of fitness, and start doing the ACFT. And if you just do those events, or those type of events, and most of you can do without any type of, you can do a plank, you can do the push-ups, and you can do certain things to get safe. We're going to be a much more physically fit Army. And when I see the young people that do CrossFit-like things, and my kids are way more physically fit than I ever was. And so that's where we're going. I think what you're going to see, though, is what we want to do is get everyone taking it, and then we'll adjust the standards on the 5%. And what I think we're going to see is with what we're putting in place, and again, we want to spread across the Army to scale with holistic fitness and health. We're going to have dietitians. We're going to have strength coaches. We're going to have a much more physically fit Army. We're going to be the world's greatest health club.
Sir, General Munger, a follow-up to that.
Yeah.
So, sir, if I may, this will be our last question because I've got you on the clock. So our last question for today, and I'll just remind you, we'll have General Hokanson to also answer some Army questions in the future. So,
Sir, General Munger, the ACFT, I think, is a great test. The issue that you're going to have with the National Guard is a lot of our soldiers have to train for that when they're not at drill locations. If they don't train correctly, they end up getting injured and they can't file an LOD. And I think there's some challenges that the Guard still has for this ACFT that we would be interested in discussing.
Yeah, I mean, that is something we need to discuss. We need your leaders to come back to us. We need to take a look at how we're going to do that. I personally work out and use different types of things because I don't have all, my job sometimes. But I mean, I do planks at home, and we got to make sure that if people don't know how to do a plank, we properly show them. Hand release push-ups, I do those at home, and I can do those type things. The running, I get to run around DC, and I do that for actually mental therapy, not physical therapy, but I do that. But your point is well taken. And for the Guard and Reserve, I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you all have to try to do because, quite frankly, many of you have day jobs that don't allow you to do those type things. But what we want to do is try to raise the fitness of the force. And what we believe by getting the right people and getting the training in place, we're going to have a more fit and healthier force. And I really believe that. And what we're trying to do is teach, I want to say the older people that are in the force right now, we got to spend some time to educate them. But the young men and women going through initial military training, they know no different. They don't know what an APFT was. They've just been doing all this, and they're growing up with that, and they get inculcated into that. The young men and women that are going through this course right now, they think everyone eats lettuce and all the right stuff. That's what they do. They all eat green. They learn to sleep. They got a structured environment. And as you said, we just need to recognize that not everyone is the same. And then we have to adapt our training for those that don't have it. And then we got to make exceptions when we need to. But as a general rule, because I get this from, I won't say from both sides, but I'll have the Ranger Battalion side that says everyone should be able to do this and run at a 6-minute pace and do 1,000,000 push-ups and do all that stuff. But guess what? Then I got other side that say, hey, I'm doing cyber, I should be, I could be whatever. And what we're trying to do is just make sure we have a healthy and fit force. It's not perfect, and then we can adapt within the organizations. And all this is going to change. And because we're going to be looking at the same, we got, like I said, we're going to get legislation to take a look at combat arms in certain units, and a lot of our special units have higher standards and different PT tests anyways. But I think this is a really good base test, and we had a lot of discussions on whether it should be, gender or age neutral, but we went with it norm because, again, what we want to do is raise the fitness of the entire force. So thank you.
Oh, sir.
Thanks, sir. I want to keep you on the clock, so I want to thank you for your time with us today. This is a long way from the monopoly boards we worked on in Bagram Air Force Base back when.
It is.
Back when we did. But we want to present you with a Christmas ornament to thank you for your time with us. It represents the 13 flags of the state partnership partners that we have, and which also now represents the 85 that we currently have relationships with. So, sir, thank you for your time with us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you, and proud to serve with you all in combat, proud to serve with you today. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Will the Sergeant at Arms please escort our distinguished guest and his party from the platform?